Welcome to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Oh my gosh, Simon!
Hey!
You're alive.
I'm alive and well and
I'm
happy to be
so
back.
glad to have you back. I missed you. I absolutely missed you. Not that I didn't enjoy the presence of Corey Plath filling in for you, which was very appreciated.
He did a phenomenal job.
He did.
Thank you, Corey. I'm glad you still have me on here because I was getting a little worried with how well he was
Nobody
doing.
could ever fully replace you, Simon. Let's be honest about that. As much as you might, butt heads with me about Landon Donovan and Jurgen Klinsmann and the Revolution and the Timbers, I still love you, no matter what. So,
makes me feel good.
Oh, good. I'm so glad that you're back after your time out in the Cascadia region.
Yes.
We were out in Portland and all of that, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But we are broadcasting live, Simon, from a very special venue this evening. For those of you that will hear this on Sports Radio America tomorrow afternoon on Fridays from 3 to 6, you'll be a little confused on why we're talking in the future, even though it's the past at the same time. But so for those of you that listen to us, you can find us on Fridays from 3 to 6 Eastern on Sports Radio America, Live 365, and tune in. You can also download our podcast and listen to us on demand anytime on Spreaker.com and iTunes as well. And you can find us on social media. Where, Simon?
On that Facebook thing,
that
right?
face, the face of the books and stuff.
You can find us there at 2 Up Front. And, of course, on Twitter at 2 Up Front Soccer. And
yes, indeed.
You were very busy on the tweet machine tonight.
I was, yes.
It was great to see.
We were both tweeting and twatting and twittering and fluttering and everything of that nature. But we are broadcasting live from Soldier Field in beautiful downtown Chicago. Yeah. My first time here in the great Soldier Field. As one who is a Green Bay Packers fan, it's hard to say that it's a beautiful stadium. But we're here for soccer.
We are.
As we are here for the 2015 CONCACAF Gold Cup. There were two group games this evening, Trinidad and Tobago taking on Guatemala, and Mexico versus Cuba.
And I just want to throw in there, I've been here a few times now for some proper football matches.
Proper football. I love it.
I was here for
football, not football.
U.S. Honduras World Cup qualifier for 2010, actually.
Wow.
Back in the days when Sam's Army was still alive and well.
It was only 5 years ago.
Yeah, transformation into the American Outlaws. I saw U.S. take on Poland in a friendly here. Caught a fire game here. Actually, I caught one of the first fire games back in the old Soldiers Field before the renovations.
Wow.
Then caught them in another game. So, yeah, it's kind of cool to be back and seeing this Gold Cup match. First time I've actually seen Mexico in person.
Okay, yeah, same for me as well. This was my first experience at an international game. I've been to a few pro games via men's and women's games, but this is my first international game. And it was interesting. We weren't able to catch the Trinidad-Guatemala game. We listened to it.
We certainly... Anyways.
Yes.
We'll get into that later, too.
Yeah, we'll definitely. We got plenty to say about that.
I kind of wish we had the old Simon Says segment.
Right?
I got
we might have to bring it back.
CONCACAF.
Oh, my gosh. We won't spoil that. That's definitely all coming up on the show.
Actually what would be more fitting is Baxter's Bash.
Baxter's Bash. I feel like with how we were treated and how the drive and how everything went, that a bash is more than a Simon Says. Simon Says is almost too nice.
Yeah, and we're too up front now, so we properly be up front.
Exactly.
When we're talking about the way CONCACAF handled their media at this event.
Not at all thrilled by it, but we don't want to spend too much time giving them more press than they deserve right now.
I like that. Very well. Good.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But before we dive into more Gold Cup action in terms of Mexico and Cuba and TNT versus Guatemala, we need to talk about the United States of America and the wonderful women that is the U.S. women's national team. I know this is supposed to be played later, but I'm going to play it now.
I love it.
Because we did win.
We did, and I was thankfully proven wrong.
Yes.
If you recall, I had said that with the way they were playing before I left for my trip,
that
I didn't see them winning the Cup. I saw Germany going through, And I am happy to say I was proven wrong, and I had said then as well that if you guys prove me wrong, if you ladies prove me wrong, I will be thrilled to have you prove me wrong. And you did, and what an outstanding final that was. U.S. beating Japan 5-2.
5-2. It almost seemed like a FIFA game, Simon. There was 4-0 before the 20th minute had even struck 20, for gosh sakes.
And not to make this all about me, Baxter.
Of course not. It's never always about you, Simon. That's why we do the show together.
I had inadvertently scheduled my flight home at the same time as the World Cup final.
Why would you do that?
Because
you assumed that the women would not make it.
I
You no faith.
I was not thinking ahead, that's why.
Oh, my gosh.
But here's the cool thing.
Yes.
So I flew an airline that actually had the game as part of its
Really?
Wi-Fi deal. So
Okay.
I got to watch the game flying home.
Wow. I think I saw videos on Twitter of fans watching on airlines, so you must have been in that. Maybe you were in the video. I didn't know it.
Actually, I have to say the stewardess as well. After they made the announcement that you have to turn off your phones,
Yes.
she walked by and saw that my phone was still on, and instead of telling me to turn it off, she asked if she could see the score.
That's a true U.S. fan. Through work, through the airlines, they wanted to know the score. But this game as a whole, obviously, you need to talk about Carly Lloyd, someone that I spent a vast amount of time bashing leading up to, I would say, even the China game. I still wasn't completely sold on Carly Lloyd because she did not have a great first 4 games of the tournament. The group stage, she was non-existent. She had poor possession on the ball. She barely touched the ball. And then the change happened. You had Megan Rapinoe and Lauren Holiday get suspended for a game, which you could argue might have been the best thing to happen to this
Blessing
women's
in
team.
disguise.
You take away 2 dynamic midfielders, and Lauren Holiday, who's retiring now from the women's national team, not completely from professional soccer for now. She's going to finish out the NWSL season with KC Sporting. No, not Sporting. They're FC Kansas City. Kansas City FC, the KCFC, KFC. I don't know. The team in Kansas City that has a women's team, she's going to go play for them this year.
Okay.
I should know this. FC Kansas City. That's what it is, I think. Anyway, she's going to finish out the season with them, but she's done with international soccer. She said she's given 10 years of her life to the women's national team, and she now wants to devote her time to her family, which makes sense. And I feel like that's one thing casual goers of soccer forget about women's soccer players is that they are women and they sometimes would like to have a family.
Yes.
We saw that happen with Shannon Box, where she took some pregnant time off, a few years ago and had a beautiful baby girl. And, we've seen a lot of the other, you saw at the end of the World Cup too, a lot of the moms with their kids were embracing, and, Heather O'Reilly, Christine Rampone, they're all mothers. So to get to see that aspect of it, I'm sure that's what Lauren Holiday, and we'll see Alex Morgan and Sydney Leroux eventually, once they've played out a majority of their career, head towards that direction, I'm sure.
I'm sure as well. And, you don't see many male players do that. You see a few here.
They're not the one
there.
that has to carry the child.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is for the woman who they can't play. I mean, that's putting the baby's life in danger. So I have no problem when they want to take time away, just like I have no problem when somebody who's dealing with a mental issue needs to take some time away. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. And I love the fact that it shows people priorities.
Yes.
You can be the greatest player in the world, but, man, family, at least for our money, it's
always
one of the things
first.
that always comes
Always,
before
always.
no matter what your career is.
Exactly.
It's got to come first.
Exactly. Now, if I had an opportunity to call the FIFA World Cup final and my wife is in the hospital getting, delivering a baby, no, I'm kidding. I would be at the hospital. I'm not that heartless, I promise, as much as I love soccer or football, depending on where you are.
Yes.
But this USA-Japan game as a whole, Simon, a lot of positive takeaways, a lot of dynamic play from the United States. And we were wondering, too, we were talking about this on the drive down, how England made Japan not look as good as we thought they were. And England obviously losing on that heartbreak own goal in the 92nd minute, something that will live in infamy in England soccer history. And I feel awful. I feel awful for the player that had it happen to her. I feel bad for England as a whole. But England really proved that Japan was not as good as I feel most thought they were.
They sure did. And when it's all said and done, England goes and beats Germany in the third place game. If England finally wins on July 4th. But they go out and beat a good German team.
Yeah.
So it makes you
wonder. It took them extra time, but they managed to get the victory.
But it makes you wonder, would England have given the U.S. a better game?
I think they would have. Personally, I was all in favor of a United States-England final.
I think that would have been really cool.
There's numerous different storylines you could have pulled from that
Absolutely,
Revolutionary
yes,
War,
yes,
and
right.
obviously they didn't have a chance because it was right after the 4th of July. Like, they had the odds going against them.
Sure.
One of the things, though, that makes me really just scratch my head and wonder why these people are even alive is those that were on Twitter during the USA-Japan game comparing the game to Pearl Harbor. And they're like, this is payback for Pearl Harbor. I'm like, no.
No, it's payback
Thousands
for the
of people lost their
2011.
lives.
Yes.
And a 5-2 soccer game does not make up for the people that died. So thank you, but no.
Right, exactly. It's, again, priority, perspective, it's all important.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a game when it gets down to
Exactly.
it. Yes, it's awesome. It's awesome seeing these women win, but this wasn't revenge against the Japanese for Pearl Harbor.
No.
This was payback for the 2011 World Cup final.
Exactly.
2012, a year later after that loss, the U.S. goes and beats Japan for the gold medal. But
not as much
it's
of a
it's not as
value.
prestigious, right, as a World Cup win. But once again, Carly Lloyd, the Japan's head coach even said after the game, she said, she always does this to us. We're a bit embarrassed. She's an excellent player. I really respect and admire her.
You have to. You absolutely have to. Jill Ellis making that smart decision by having Morgan Bryan come into the midfield, play more of a holding midfielder and saying, Carly, look, you're a natural-born goal scorer. We know that you can score goals. Go play up top with Alex Morgan and the offense and do what you do best. And she basically, took the leash off of Carly Lloyd in the final and said, go.
Go, right.
And she did.
Right. Yeah, there's something to be said for having too many dynamic players in that midfield playing together.
Yes.
You're getting in each other's way. You're not playing like you can with like you said, having more of a defensive midfield playing behind you. It's, again, very similar to what Michael Bradley struggles with Jermaine Jones at times, is who's going to go and who's going to stay back. In this case, it was very clear that Lloyd was the reins were dropped and she was allowed to go and do what she does best, and ends up scoring a hat trick, first time in Women's World Cup final history, ends up scoring one of the fastest goals in World Cup history in the finals.
What did you think of the midfield goal?
I thought it was awesome.
Well,
I mean, what it showed is her awareness on that field.
Yes.
And even if she had missed,
still,
you go for that.
You're 54 yards out. You notice the goalkeeper horribly off her line.
You're playing on artificial turf, so you're going to get that.
You're going to get a massive. You're going to get a
crazy
massive bounce.
Yep.
First of all, but you also have the one thing I like about playing on turf, which is not much. The one thing I like about is that you don't have to worry about the grass getting in your way. In terms of when you strike the ball, it's basically kicking a ball off of carpet.
Yes, right.
It has no friction.
No
in
matter
your way.
how advanced artificial turf has gotten, it's still artificial turf.
Exactly, and that's my one thing I like about kicking a ball on turf is that I don't have to worry about dragging my foot through 5 inches of grass and having it slow down my shot or the pass. And yes, it's a faster game, but I think the fact that the tournament was played on turf allowed the women to play at a faster tempo. That's why England and France excelled. And that's why Nigeria was able to almost beat Sweden.
Right.
As well, is because Nigeria was like, hey, we're actually pretty darn fast. And they almost beat Sweden, which I thought would have been a fantastic bit for the team as a whole. Nigeria, you could argue, was one of those teams that didn't get a lot of press throughout the tournament. But in their first tournament as a whole, they definitely made a lot of positive jumps forward in the game.
Absolutely. Now, let's not forget, too, though, that Tobin Heath's goal actually, I think, played a bigger role in this game than people are making it out to be.
Yes, I agree.
Japan had 2 goals in a row. Of course, one was an own goal from Johnston.
Yes.
Doing just not thinking. But as you said before the show, too, she's young, she's learning.
Yes.
I mean, overall, that back
We've got
four
her
was
for at
amazing.
least 2 more World Cups,
Right,
and the
right.
U.S. is going to be forever blessed because of that.
Right. But Tobin Heath's goal stopped that flow of goals from Japan.
Yes.
She put in that it was 4-0 at half, goes to 4-2, and you're starting to think, Japan's making a game out of this. We've seen teams come back from 4-goal deficits before.
It was 4-1, wasn't it?
4-1.
Yeah,
No,
4-1.
4.
I thought it was 4-1. No, it was 4-0 after 20 minutes. I thought it was 4-1 at half. I could be wrong, but I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. We're checking on this, folks. Go back up again. Go back up on your computer. I saw the times of the goals. Go
Was
up.
it? Up,
yeah.
up, up.
Keep going. People are like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
This is-
there's one. 27th
Yes, all right,
minute.
27th minute.
Yep.
Right. Okay, but then Johnston gets that own goal in the 52nd minute, so there's still plenty of time to play.
Of course.
And
then-
Japan at that point, I know what my point was. Japan at that point was really starting to control the game a bit.
Yes.
U.S. was hanging back, so that Tobin Heath goal stopped that momentum that it looked like Japan was really starting to gain. So, kudos to Tobin Heath for stopping that flow.
I do.
And
That
really
that
putting
was
the game out.
like you said, the official nail in the coffin, as it were. But you look at Japan, and Japan is the one team that, out of any team in the wide world of women's soccer, that you could be up 10-0 on at halftime, and I would still be scared that they would come back and win. And I was watching the game with my wife and with other friends, and they were like, yeah, we're up 4-1, we're up 4-1 at half. And I'm like, this game is far from over because I know how Japan plays the game.
It's like watching a Timbers game against Seattle. It's not over until that whistle blows.
Exactly. And
Timbers,
that was my thought the entire second half. And when they got that second goal and it was 4-2, I'm like, this game is wide open. Now, yes, it's a 2-goal lead, but still, the Japan attack had been starting to finally find that fluidity that they were missing during the first half. And it was pressing and pressing and pressing, and Hope Solo definitely made her money's worth and earned her a Golden Glove award in that final.
She did. Yeah, she did. I've got my own personal problems with her personal life.
Yes,
but
as most people do.
On the field, it was fantastic.
It was.
So in 91 was the first Women's World Cup. They took care of business there, the U.S. Yep. This was a first in sorts as well, in that this tournament had expanded from 16 to 24 teams. So once again, the record setter Americans come out and grab the first trophy at this expanded World Cup.
Yes.
And just the whole cup itself, it really has shown how far women's soccer has come worldwide.
Yes.
We've talked about this on the show before, how there used to be those 2 or 3 teams. In the early years, early 90s, it was U.S., Norway. Then we saw Sweden actually start to improve, and then, of course, Germany came on big time, and then we've seen it improve in Asia. But now we're seeing,
Canada.
as you're talking about, yes, Canada's been fantastic, but now we see England reach third place, Cameroon advance to the round of 16.
Yep. France had a great showing this year as well.
Right.
And then obviously the experiment is still working out. Ivory Coast, they get blown out by Germany, having 10 goals scored against them. Obviously, it's their first World Cup. They're on a completely different level than Germany. It's not even. It's hard to judge Ivory Coast in terms of how poorly they played because it was their first World Cup. It was either going to be hit or miss in that regards. But you need to make mention of Australia, who was my dark horse pick in the tournament because I thought that after they finished in second place in Group D, that there was a good chance that they could make a deep run.
Yeah, I mean, that game against the U.S. was fantastic.
Yes.
I know they ended up losing.
It was 3-1,
Right.
but
for the majority of that game,
Yeah.
they were on top of the U.S.
I absolutely agree. And then they go out in the round of 16 and beat Brazil and
Right.
completely shock pretty much every soccer expert out there and saying, oh, Brazil's going to take this game. But Brazil had a kind of a shaky group stage as well. They did well. They won all 3 of their games, but look at their group. The Korea Republic, so South Korea, Costa Rica, and Spain. Spain and Costa Rica, not traditionally very good women's soccer.
Right.
South Korea, they're not too bad. Those Asian, China, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, all 4 of those are relatively good women's soccer programs. But even still, Brazil getting 4 total goals, not allowing a single goal in the group stage, and then the one goal they allow the entire World Cup is the one that sends them home.
That's right. That's right.
It's weird how things like that work.
No, but what's cool to see is at least each region seems to have 1, maybe 2 really good teams now that are contenders. I mean, that's really the first time that I remember in a Women's World Cup where we got to see that.
And it was helpful for the growth of the game because, like you said, there were good teams in each division, I guess, each group in different parts of the world. So now going forward, France and England are going to spearhead that, and France, England, and Germany are going to spearhead that European attack, mixed in with Sweden a little bit as well, because Sweden obviously is just traditionally good. Then you see a good showing from the Netherlands as well. They surprised a lot of people in terms of how well they played. And then obviously looking to Asia, Japan, China, South Korea, North Korea, those 4 are always going to play well. Australia, I felt, turned some heads as well. Nigeria didn't get the credit that they deserved, I felt. Yes, they go 0-1-2 during their time in the tournament, only managed 1 point because of that draw. But I also think that if they would have played every game in the group stage like they played against Sweden in that opening game, I think it would have completely changed the ebb and flow of the group of death, as it were.
Yeah, what's interesting is the one region that really doesn't seem to have more than one strong team is South America.
Yeah.
You got Brazil. Yeah, Ecuador was in there. Colombia was in there.
Ecuador finished bottom of their group.
Right.
Colombia made it to the second round.
Did they?
Ecuador didn't get a single point. Where is Colombia finished with 4 points? They were one of the third place teams that made it through.
That's right.
Lost 2-0 to the United States in the group round, in the round
so.
of 16. But Colombia put up a physical, technical fight.
They did.
Made the U.S.'s life very difficult all match long.
And that also, though, was, I was still not a fan of how the U.S. was playing. It just seemed way too conservative for a Jill Ellis side to play that way.
Exactly, and that makes you question how good of a coach Jill Ellis is. Obviously, her stepping in as the first-year coach. Yes, she's been the director for soccer for U.S. Soccer for many years.
She was an assistant, too.
Yes, she's had her time, but this was the first real test to see just how good Jill Ellis is as a coach, which leads us nicely into our 50-50 segment as we want to talk about how we were talking about on the drive down here. I mentioned, you said, hey, did you hear that Costa Rica's head coach, the men's coach, is now the coach of Honduras? And you said, oh, no, I hadn't heard that. And you mentioned that he felt that that the men's coaches especially are good for a cycle. You go through the World Cup cycle once with a team, win or lose, usually lose, you move on. Vincent Del Bosque for Spain, one of the few. Carlo Ancelotti for Italy. He's been around for a little while as well.
Lowe for Germany.
Yeah, Jorgi Lowe. There's a few exceptions that win or lose, you still stay around. But you brought up the point of whether or not Jill Ellis should stick around for another cycle.
Another cycle. Right.
Yes, the Olympics are next summer. The Summer Olympics are next summer. Maybe she finishes out the Summer Olympics and then goes back into more of an administrative role. So, what we're debating tonight for our 50-50 segment, we each get 45 seconds to voice our opinion about a topic. 45 and 45 equals 90, a full soccer match. We will only do seconds, not minutes, because nobody got time for a full 90 minutes.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Not at all. So Simon and I will each take a side. And remember, let us know your thoughts about it. You can hit us up on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer. We love hearing from you. We love hearing the feedback about if you think either Simon or I had the better argument or just your opinion about the argument as a whole. So to reiterate the question, Simon, it is, should Jill Ellis stay on for another World Cup cycle? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I'll go first today.
Please.
You went first last time.
Yes, I did.
All right.
On your mark, get set.
Simple answer is no. I say play through the Olympics, see what happens either way, then step down. Now, I will say in the women's game it's a little different because you do have the World Cup and then you have the Olympics, so it's a little different than the men's game. But by principle, I think you do a cycle and you step away from it. There's been few exceptions, but a lot of the times when that second cycle comes around, either the coach is worn out, it doesn't have new ideas, or she doesn't have new ideas. We saw that with Bruce Arena. We saw that with Sven Eriksson with England. And I've seen a number of coaches step down after 4 years simply because they've said straight out that it's time to step down. So I think just on principle, Jill Ellis has done a magnificent job, so this is not to say she's done bad, but it's 4 years.
Time's
Step
up.
aside. All right. So you're up now. Of
All
course,
right.
in the 50 segment, we switch it up.
Indeed.
So you get to say the other side.
I do.
You all set?
I believe so.
Here we go.
Well, obviously you were the negative side of it, so I'm going to be positive. I feel like the fact that Jill Ellis won a Women's World Cup in her first season, or her first year as a head coach of the national team, speaks volumes of how good of a coach she is. And now that she's figured out, okay, this is how I can win a championship with the players that I have, and she's able to overcome adversities like losing Holiday and Rapinoe and figure out that Morgan Bryan will be a helpful player to have in the midfield as well, she has all the tools to not only win the Olympics next year, but also continue this cycle and stay on for at least another World Cup cycle. Whether or not the U.S. ends up winning, it's going to be hard to bet against them in the next coming World Cup, especially when they retain all their attacking options. She's got all the right pieces. She deserves to be around for at least one more cycle.
All right. Yeah, part of me wonders just we've talked about how bad they were playing until that semifinal.
Yep.
And that's also what makes me question is should she stay on? I almost feel like she got a bit lucky.
She did.
That she had to put these players in there and went, oh, hey, that works.
But now she knows.
But what happens when those players don't produce?
We have a lot of depth. The U.S. has a stupid amount of depth.
But she wasn't tapping into it until she had to.
That's true. Trial by fire.
Just makes me question. Anyways, we got to go to break.
We will. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, a lot more fun things to talk about. Going to recap the Gold Cup from live here in Chicago, Trinidad and Tobago, Guatemala, and Mexico, Cuba. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. This is Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. We are broadcasting live from Chicago, Illinois.
Soldier Field.
From Soldier Field.
Home of the Bears.
The Bears. You can still hear Ditka yelling on the sidelines there at the beer players. For those of you that have no idea what we're talking about the great coach. Ditka. What a guy for the Bears. For those of you that follow the NFL, you get the joke. If not, well, sorry.
Did you ever see the soccer movie that he's in with Will Ferrell?
I have not.
Kicking and screaming?
I've seen snippets of it, but I've never seen the full movie.
First time I watched the movie, I was bored out of my mind. But it was one of those that after I watched it and thought about it, it got more funny. And then when I watched it the second time, just loved it.
Loved every moment of it. Well, we are loving every moment of our time down here in Chicago.
Not every moment.
Oh, really?
Since we got in the stadium,
Since we got in the stadium, which is literally in front of us, I can see Soldier Field through the press box windows. It is very well done. The field, we were commenting on how nice the field looks, Simon.
It's beautiful.
In terms of
well taken care of.
It surprises you. You know, it takes a pounding during the NFL season, and then they're able to upkeep it nicely. And yes, there's a few patchy spots, but it looks like a beautiful pitch from where we sit, and they did a fantastic job making this feel like a very big soccer-specific stadium. There were 54,000 people on hand tonight for this game.
Yeah, 54,000 plus
between the two games.
Right. But most people were here for the second game, and that's unfortunate because the first game, as we were listening to it on our way down, we had expected to be here a lot earlier. That, at least the first 25 minutes, that sounded like the U.S. women's national team playing.
It did.
Trinidad and Tobago putting in 3 goals in the first, I think it was 25 minutes.
Yes, they found their rhythm early, not from their main goal scorer. Their only Trinidad and Tobago player to ever score in Gold Cup, Kenway Jones, did not register a goal tonight. Thankfully, I feel like, yes, you want your star to get the goals, but when you can have 3 other players show up and score goals, Simon, it speaks volumes of how much Trinidad is growing and how much of a danger they can be.
Absolutely. I remember when they qualified for their first World Cup back in 2006. 2006. Was it 2? Yes, it had to be 2006. I was down in Austin
out even numbers, yes. I don't know.
And also cool that there were a number of MLS players represented. For Trinidad, you had Cotto, Jones, and George out there. And then for Guatemala, of course, you had Marco Papa, Moises Hernandez, and
the old
Elias
legend.
Vasquez.
The legend, Carlos Ruiz.
Ruiz, yes.
We were listening to the radio on the way down, and I'm like, he's still playing?
He's still playing. And he scored a goal tonight.
He did.
He scored Guatemala's goal in the second half. So, good representation from MLS this evening out there.
It was. It absolutely was, and I think something that TNT can use to fuel their drive forward. They're going to obviously have to take on Mexico. They're going to obviously have to take on Cuba. Not really worried about TNT Cuba. I feel like we'll see a pretty similar explosion, to borrow the TNT reference. I thought that's,
right.
I thought it was clever.
Well, they've obviously, I mean, literally, but also mentally have positioned themselves to be the second-place team in this group. But I'm excited to see this Mexico TNT game.
I might have to find a time to actually watch that game because I feel like the chance of an upset would come from TNT beating Mexico. Like, they have the offensive power to do it. And one of the tweets I sent out tonight, I was like, I think Mexico is one of the better teams in this tournament, but I'm excited to see them play a real team.
I mean, Cuba had 16 players here, so they only had 5 subs. Their head coach didn't make it over. One of their better players didn't make it over. So I think it's very legitimate to say, yes, we don't really know what Mexico is all about because they basically played an amateur side tonight.
Yeah, I feel like a USL Pro team or even an NASL team might have put up a little bit more of a fight than what we saw tonight from Cuba.
And it's Cuba's keeper was actually outstanding.
He did. He played very well.
He did not let in 6 goals. That defense let in. Maybe he let in 1. That defense definitely let in 5.
Yes.
I mean, he had a number of fantastic saves, even against his own players at one point.
If you have to make saves against the other team and your own team, you're definitely in trouble. But if you can make saves on both accords, you're definitely showing up in good numbers as well. Now, looking at Mexico, looking at Cuba, and everybody else that was here, it definitely is good to get a different perspective than from us as a whole. So we ran into a good friend tonight as we were here at the stadium. We ran into one of our friends at Vavel USA, Mr. Afshin. I never know how to pronounce his last name. Zahari. So Afshin Zahari was doing a live, basically commentary on Vavel USA for the Mexico-Cuba game. So he's now here in the studio with us. So welcome. How you doing tonight, sir?
How's it going? Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks, appreciate it. I know you guys are 2 up front. Hopefully we can go to a 4-3-3 for a minute here.
We can adjust the 3 up
sub
front.
On for a second.
Well, Simon stepped out for a moment, so you can take over. So Simon's only good for about 60-65 minutes, and then he needs to sub up.
He's pouting on the bench.
He's pouting on the bench.
Yeah,
he tweaked an ankle. He's done for the year. But you had the opportunity to be here for both games.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You were smart. You live literally 2 minutes from the stadium.
Yeah, it's a nice walk. I mean, everyone had to get parking passes and stuff, and I just, walked over a bridge and went to gate 1, said, give me my credentials, and came straight here, so it was pretty easy.
That's the life.
Yeah, a little bit of sweating because I was wearing the suit, which was a bit of a mistake, but fair play. It was good time. But I heard you guys actually talking a bit as I came in from the press conference, which, by the way, was pretty much all in Spanish.
I was going to say, how was your Spanish? Did you have Google Translate up on your phone? Or?
I just videotaped it, and I'm praying someone can translate it for me tonight because I thought they'd have an English translator, but it didn't work out. So I was like, I got to get up and get on this show. And I saw you guys talking about, Cuba would have some trouble against some NASL, USL sides. As a matter of fact, just a couple weeks ago, they hosted the New York Cosmos and lost to them 4-1. So,
there we go.
So that's a very good point you guys brought up. It was a friendly match, but it's trying to open up borders.
Of course,
Cuba,
yeah. Well, that's
But yeah.
interesting, too, because now I know Cuba doesn't have an NASL team, but Puerto Rico has the Puerto Rico Islanders now.
Yeah.
They're an NASL team, the first international, I guess, NASL team. So it's still part of the United States,
Very good
technically.
point. Opening up 51st state, question mark.
Maybe. They've been pushing for that for years. I think they just need to merge the Dakotas and just call it a day,
Yeah.
honestly. I'm tired of
I
North and
agree.
South Dakota. It's a bunch of land for
a
oil.
A bunch of states up there that I don't,
Exactly.
really pay far too much attention to. It was, yes, yeah. The question was if it was in Havana, and it was. They were trying to have like a little nice friendly, open up the borders a bit.
Nice friendly, and the Cosmos
what
are
they call
like,
it.
nah, we're gonna just beat you.
The Cosmos absolutely ruined it. The pitch was a bit, dismantled, but
Makes sense.
That's what you'd expect. But yeah, today they, you guys brought up some good points. The goalie not at fault at all. It's a tough match for them, especially having missing a bunch of guys and one guy running away and defecting. So.
Yeah. Definitely
it was
made life very difficult for Cuba as a whole. Now, you were here for the first game. Give us some of your thoughts on the explosive performance by TNT as they were taking on Guatemala. We thought that Guatemala would be able to put up more of a fight than they did, especially with Marco Papa running around the midfield, a MLS player that both of us know very well. You, as a Chicago Fire fan, know him well.
Yes.
Myself, as a Revolution fan. Simon sees him a lot more out in Cascadia because he's a Portland fan.
There you go.
Give us a little bit of your thoughts on the TNT offense and the game as a whole.
I'll tell you what, I was very surprised by TNT's work. I mean, the friendly that Guatemala had with the U.S., we saw U.S. win that one 4-0, and I thought, okay, we're really good. Because Guatemala has been decent in the past, but Trinidad was very explosive today. Jovan Jones was very strong out of the midfield, and I know him personally as a Fire fan. Not trying to be too much of a homer. He did win man of the match.
I hope so, especially for that hometown performance.
He did fantastic, and I thought their forwards were way too powerful for the defense. Powerful and fast. When you talk about Kenwin Jones, he can go up, get the ball, flick it on. They had good pace off the wings. It was fantastic. And actually, they did a very good job, and I think they scoped in on Marco Papa, because as soon as he touched the ball, I saw 3 or 4 TNT players just, suffocate him, basically, and he had nowhere to go. So the combination of that and, as I was saying, the speed and power of their front line, it's going to be a really good match against Mexico, I think. As you guys mentioned when I was coming in.
Yeah.
And also, it took Guatemala a while to wake up. I think for about 65 minutes they sleepwalked through that match, and they poured pressure on at the end, but it was too little, too late. So.
Yeah. No, and you mentioned the fact that Papa was very isolated, and we were listening on the radio on the way in, and the commentators were making comments about every time Papa touched the ball, there was 2 or 3 TNT defenders immediately in his face, immediately, causing problems, and that was what they needed to do. And it's obvious that was a conversation that was had before the game by the TNT staff saying, all right, you got to go after these guys. You got to keep Papa, especially, who's a very good set-piece guy, but also a very good distributor as a whole. They were able to shut him down, which obviously helped them go to a 3-1 victory. And Carlos Ruiz, the man that never dies, I swear. I have faint, horrible memories of him in a Galaxy uniform ruining all my hopes and dreams as a Revolution fan.
We talked about that on the way down.
We did. We talked about that. Simon was nice enough to reopen that massive wound and pour a big vat of salt all over it. I'm like, why? Why did we talk about Brian Ching? Why did we talk about Carlos Ruiz? I don't want to have anything to do with Dynamo or Galaxy people.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's sore. It's a sore subject.
Seeing him was a bit surprising. I kind of thought he had maybe moved on. I mean, he seems like he's about 106.
That's why I told Simon, I'm like, he's still playing? He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, where is he playing back? I think he's playing back at home now. I think he's back in Guatemala now.
I believe so. Yeah, he's, but he looked like that scraggly self that you see and that face. And
scraggly,
I always, he was very dangerous, but I always thought he whined a bit much.
Yeah.
But no, it was toned down today. He was a bit of a threat. He was a bit of a threat around the net. There were a few times that Guatemala sent the ball in, and he was maybe a step slow getting to it, sliding in. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely about the shutting down of Marco Papa. It seemed like there was no link between the defense and that forward line that includes Ruiz. So hopefully they're going to have to try to get their points off Cuba and hope that their goal differential carries them through.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Cuba, it's safe to say, will probably finish last in the group. I don't really feel like any soccer, even connoisseur or even just a casual viewer would argue against Cuba winning a game.
Even if they get their 5 or 6 guys and Team Doctor, who I heard didn't make it to get their visas, then
how long have they known about this tournament? How do you not get your visas in time?
It doesn't make sense, and you kind of feel bad for them, but.
Do you though?
You can't. Yeah, you can't do this. The players, not the federation.
Sure. Yeah.
The players.
Of
they
course,
work their tails off. You're looking at their bench and you see 3 to 4 subs just sitting there. And
reminded me of my old high school days. We had like 5 subs if we were lucky.
Yeah, it's like a Sunday league team that doesn't show up.
Basically, half the bench is probably drunk. Like that's what you do in a Sunday league. Now, obviously, you were talking about the lack of communication between the midfields and the forwards for Guatemala. That was not the case with Mexico.
Ooh,
Mexico was firing on all cylinders. We see a hat trick coming tonight from Oribe Peralta, Man of the Match award, obviously, with a hat trick. A very complete performance from him. Mexico, I feel like at certain times was really just turning it into a keep away and score at the end.
Yeah.
a few nice run-of-play goals. Giovanni Dos Santos with a beautiful 1v1 goal that he was able to slot home.
Absolutely.
How did this Mexico team assert themselves in terms of a threat within the Gold Cup?
I'll tell you what, like you were saying, there were moments in the match it looked like they were on the training ground just sort of passing it around and playing, but it seemed like Cuba tried to play a high line against them, and against this team, you don't want to do it. They're so precise with their passing. Carlos Vela looked fantastic, I think, not only beating players one-on-one, but finding the men, just chipping it over the back line.
Yep.
So I think he's someone that's scary, and even Giovanni Dos Santos, who didn't play the whole match, came on. There was the Dos Santos substitution, as I claimed on the live, for he came on for Jonathan Dos Santos.
Yep. And brotherly love.
Yeah, right. They're full of attackers. Don't be fooled by Chicharito not being able to play in these matches. They have plenty of attack. I thought their midfield bossed the game very well.
Yes.
Herrera was fantastic. And here's what I think they did well. They did a good job of working the ball kind of in the middle, and then once they got to about midfield, they opened it up. Layun was working the wings, Aguilar was working the wings, and that spread out that back four for Cuba. And the middle was just wide open, and their defenders didn't really hold much of a chance. But
yeah, when I had made the comment at one point to Baxter, just look at the difference in their shapes. Cuba was all over the place, and there are many times in the first half where Cuba's shape was literally a circle with one guy in the middle of it.
Yeah, yep.
And Mexico, they're keeping their. I mean, what was cool to watch Mexico with their shape is it was actually very flexible. They were a 4-4-2 at times. Then they were a 3-5-2 at times. There was one point where it was a 2-3-6, whatever the numbers were, a 2-3-5.
Yeah,
it was, but it was really. For any young players out there that want to say, what do they mean by keeping their shape? This is a perfect example of that. But also how you improvise within your shape as well.
Yeah, no, Simon makes a fantastic point. I agree. I think they're very disciplined. Despite, having the big lead, they could have probably just gone out and had fun and done their thing, but they stuck to the game plan.
Yep.
And it was actually a treat to watch. It was interesting. I didn't know how many goals they were going to eventually get up to. It was over under double digits there for a minute. But.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Simon made the prediction on the way. He was like, "I'd be shocked if it wasn't 10-0." And we were on our way. It should have been 7-0 because the first Dos Santos goal that was called offsides was not. After seeing the video replays,
I thought so too.
Yes, he was at least 2 feet on sides after the video replays. Although it's funny because they didn't show it on the stadium boards because CONCACAF is not about that. They don't show the controversial calls on the board. But you literally, us in the press box, we pick our heads up, we look at the TV monitors, and they show everything. And even on Twitter, they're like, it was a goal, it was a goal, it was a goal.
Right. Actually, as a matter of fact, it took me about 5 minutes past the live to notice it wasn't actually called a goal because as soon as I saw it, I'm like, yep, that's good. I'm typing it. And because there was some celebrations, I heard noise. And then later on, when they actually scored another one, I'd originally typed it was 7-0. And then I looked at the board, and I'm like, did I miss something? So I had to look back and see what was going on. But I completely missed that it was completely onside to me. That's you bring up a great point. I always check the replay on these screens here, and they showed it.
And if you're Bruce Arena, too, sitting out in LA, you have to be just like, folding his hands like an evil taskmaster, like, haha, yes, Mr. Dos Santos, I like your goals. Yes, petting a cat, throwing darts at Landon Donovan's picture. No, it's Jurgen Klinsmann. But it's encouraging because if Dos Santos does go to the Galaxy, which there's the big rumors that it will happen again, it's back on, supposedly. Same with Chicharito to Orlando. Whether or not that actually happens has yet to be seen. But you talk about Dos Santos and his playmaking abilities. We saw that tonight. Mix that in with all the things the Galaxy have going forward, too, and that'd be a very dynamic midfield to try to stop. Especially with Stevie G showing up this year.
I'll tell you what, that conference is fun to watch. I mean, can we just call the Western Conference the playoffs this year? And
we might as well.
I know you're a Revs fan. I'm a Fire fan. Let's just throw the East out this
year. Send DC United as the one East team because they've earned it.
Yeah,
and then it'll all be West teams after that.
Yeah, pretty much Cascadia and the Galaxy.
Just call it MLS Premier League and MLS Second Division.
Yeah. We might at this point we might as well because of how poor the East is playing.
And there comes the Pro-Rel talk again. Oh gosh.
Well, who was it? The USL USL filed for Second Division status.
Yeah. Oh. Really? So, how's that?
I haven't heard if it's been officially done or not yet. But
I don't know if they officially applied, but they said they have the intention to do so.
It makes sense though, because they have so many affiliate clubs with MLS teams. So why not?
I don't know if it's been brought. I have no problem with that. I think it's great. I think it's going to make owners want to try to win and throw good teams. Obviously, they can't do it now because of the single entity MLS. Yes. But I think in the future it'd be nice. It'll push owners to try to work harder. And it would be better for the sport in the U.S., better for our talent pool scouting, because I feel like you have the really good players on NASL and USL teams, and undoubtedly Klinsmann probably watches them. He's been, he'd watched Ibarra of Minnesota United.
But now in Mexico.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He is now in Club Leon.
I thought that was a tad ironic where they were like, "Oh, our big player is, Ibarra," and then it was like sold.
Yep,
I'm like,
gone.
Awkward.
but these kind of players, they can get promoted, and we can see them in the spotlight a little more. But that's for another day, I guess.
Indeed. Well, Afshin, it's been great having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Always
great
always
running into you guys
sir.
And seeing you here. Hey, I'm telling you, come down here. There's Giordano's right down there.
Ooh,
I'll take
Chicago
you guys. Get some
pizza.
It's on me. I'll get the
you
pizza.
missed our Ditka stuff. We were talking about Ditka before on the show. We're in Chicago at the Bears.
There you go.
A lot of people probably didn't get the reference because of NFL and soccer and everything. But before we let you go, where can people find you on Twitter and your writing, sir?
Good call. So people can find me at AfshinZ951, AFSHINZ951. So that's my Twitter, and I'm writing for Vavel USA. So you log on there, and I write for predominantly the Fire, and I do a little work for Vavel UK too with Arsenal and Sunderland.
Really?
Yeah, they just got me into those off. Yeah, Sunderland needed some people. I actually have a good buddy that's a Sunderland fan, so I was like, hey, why not?
Okay.
Secondary team, and I'm an Arsenal fan.
I know you're an Arsenal fan. Yeah,
absolutely. So, but then this being here, I was like, I want to cover some of this. So. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place with that. But yeah, absolutely check it out.
Awesome.
So, and I've listened to some of your work. It's great stuff. So I'll make sure I retweet that to my to my followers. I got a Trinidadian. Is that the word for them?
Yes. I think so.
Okay, I got a Trinidadian DJ to follow me tonight. I guess he was reading my live.
There it is.
We'll get him to listen to your guys' show.
Fantastic. Send it to the TNT folk. I love it.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having
me
again.
Thank you for
and like I said,
us.
you guys are calling me when you're in Chicago.
We will. We definitely will. He's Afshin of Vavel USA. Remember, check out his work on Vavel USA and follow him on Twitter as well. We are going to go to a break. Simon, when we come back, more fun things to talk about. We might have to be the ones that turn off the lights here at Soldier Field. They've already cut some of the stadium lights, but whatever. We drove. It took us 4 hours to get here. An hour and a half drive took us 4 hours to get here. We are gonna we will lock down Soldier Field.
It took us 3 hours to get to Chicago.
That's true.
Then it took us an hour to get around the whole CONCACAF
exactly.
stuff. Ashvin, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. It's nice meeting you.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, if you thought CONCACAF was corrupt, we're going to talk about the FIFA rankings. They are out. Wales breaking the top 10. So excited.
Ryan Giggs is so proud.
He is. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. This is 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Simon, we are live in Chicago, Illinois. We are broadcasting from Soldier Field as you are listening to us here on Sports Radio America, sportsradioamerica.com, live 365, and tune in. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer. Let us know your thoughts and feelings about if you're watching the CONCACAF Gold Cup, if you have thoughts and feelings about the U.S. women's national team winning the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup, and anything else we happen to talk about, or if you just have questions about us, in general. We'd love to chat with you. You can find me on Twitter at Baxter Colburn, and I'm pretty sure you're at Simon Provan.
That is it.
We try to keep it simple for the public. I used to be like Baxstar20 or Bax Colburn. I used to be the weird,
Yeah, I learned a long time ago, just keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm trying. I learned that with my old age. It must be because I'm a married man now.
You
I've
must
gained
have been
years of knowledge.
You must have been one of those kids that had a crazy email account too, like True Dog Bax.
I mean, I could tell you what my high school email was.
I think you should.
I should. Yes, my high school email was ItalianChico92 at hotmail.com.
Ashvin, I called it. See?
Yep, ItalianChico92 because I'm half Italian and I grew up with a lot of exchange students from Spain, and they would call me Chico because I was a boy, and I was like, oh, Italian Chico, I'm born in 1992. Wow, that's such a cool email.
Yeah.
And then my coworkers got a hold of it, and now they call me Chico.
I understood the Italian part. I thought the Chico thing was going to be something about you having cheeks, so I'm glad it was not that.
No, it's more Chico like a boy. So an Italian boy 92 is.
Okay.
If you cross-language translate, that's what it works out to.
Speaking of Italian, they're ranked number 17th in the world right now. And the U.S., after very impressive wins, dropped to 34th.
Oh, that makes sense. Not.
But...
What the heck?
Tunisia?
I have had it. Absolutely had it.
You're going to make the argument that Tunisia should be below the U.S.?
I
or
think
that
Tunisia should host the next World Cup. Tunisia has a fantastic program.
I don't know if they have enough bribe money to host the next World Cup.
Well, now that CONCACAF just named the Turks and Caicos lady to be their new their voting bid, right. I'm waiting for Turks and Caicos to get the next World Cup.
Well, they will, but it's got to happen in the fall time, I believe.
In fall, yes. It can't be winter or summer. Maybe spring. We could do spring. Like a March, like April. Maybe we could do April around Easter time. That would be nice, Spring break.
So here's, to me, actually, fine, you want to say the U.S. is hampered by the fact that UEFA's qualifying's going on, that Copa America is going on, but then explain to me how Argentina loses to Chile and still gets bumped up to number 1. Over Germany. Over the World Cup winner.
Because Messi, that's why.
Because Messi.
That's your answer. Messi,
it is very messy. You're right.
It is. Messi with an I and a Y and an I-E and any other way you want to spell it, honestly. It's ridiculous. Argentina does not deserve to be number 1, especially after losing to Chile. Messi's still in search of his first international title, which who knows if he'll ever get. He's lost every Copa America final he's ever played, and he's lost every World Cup he's ever played in.
We talked about on the way down, too, how for these rankings, each confederation has its own value placed on it, so that beating a UEFA team, even if it's San Marino, will get you more points in the rankings than beating Costa Rica or Mexico.
That's who we should be scheduling friendlies against, not the number 1 and 7 teams in the world. We should be playing San Marino.
And look, I'm going to be the last person to defend Mexico, but ranked 40th in the world?
No.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely ridiculous. Tell me the top 10, please.
Top 10.
Humor the listeners,
All
the
right.
new FIFA World Cup rankings.
So number 1 is Argentina. Number 2 is Germany.
Are you going to do them all in the accent?
I'm going to try to. Number 3 is Belgium. 4 is Colombia. 5 is Netherlands. 6 is Brazil. Portugal at 7. Romania at 8. England at 9. And Wales at number 10.
I'm glad England finally bumped up the rankings because they've hit a bad slump. And whether or not they confused this England with the women's national team.
Oh, that could be it.
Maybe that's what it is. But I feel like some of the Lionesses could probably start for Roy Hodgson's side, honestly.
By the way, Copa America winner Chile, number 11.
Makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Now, granted, I know those
Where's
haven't
Spain?
been figured into these rankings yet, but Spain is number 12, just below Chile.
That's fine.
So.
Now, I'm a little concerned why Austria's 15? What's up with... Oh, they're tied.
They're tied on points.
Slovakia and Austria are both 15. And you can argue that they're better than Italy, right? You could definitely make a solid argument that they're...
If we did a 50-50 segment on that, no, I couldn't.
You would take the no, and you'd stick me with it and be like, Tess, tell them why. I have so many issues, obviously, with FIFA as a whole. I have so many issues with these new FIFA rankings. even looking at teams like Japan, Peru, I don't know why Peru is so high up the rankings. Tunisia's 32nd. Ukraine is 27th.
Iceland is at number 23.
I
think they've actually been doing well. I'll have to say, I think they've been doing well in qualifying for UEFA. But
that one Iceland team that has the sweet team celebrations is really cool.
That's
to watch.
yes.
They do like the fish and the toilet and the bike, and I think somebody gave birth one time. Like it's a bit much, but it works.
Yeah. Well, speaking of interesting developments,
yes,
Bob Bradley takes the U.S. team to the knockout rounds. He had some sniffs with West Ham and Aston Villa.
Yep.
You're thinking Bruce Arena had a sniff with Tottenham back in the day.
Yes.
You're thinking these very successful American coaches would end up in the Premier League.
Like Jay Heaps?
Like Jay.
Sorry.
Well, you would think Bob
Steve
Bradley
Nicol.
or
Steve Nicol,
Bruce Arena.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm talking American coaches.
Dominic Kinnear.
Sure. You would think they're going to end up in the Premier League with the records they have.
Yes.
But turns out, Preki.
Whoa!
Going to Leicester City. Now, that's the rumor. But there is only one vacancy in the 4 leagues in England. There's only one vacancy.
Which is
Leicester
surprising.
City. And
although Liverpool might be looking for a new manager soon.
Could be.
That's the rumor that Brendan Rodgers is next on the chopping block out of all EPL coaches.
Well, and I you know what? We could go on a whole tangent on that too. I'm not a Liverpool man. I'm an Everton man. But let's be honest, that club is not giving him much to work with either.
No,
they're
really
if
not.
anything, they're subtracting. But anyway, so Preki ends up being apparently the first American coach to coach
Which
in the
is funny
Premier League.
because you'd think of the name Preki and it is the most non-American name you can ever think of.
Right, and he's originally from Yugoslavia.
Yes.
And we were joking around on the way over. Perhaps that's what it was. He's not really American.
So it's okay. Yeah.
But he did play in the '98 World Cup for the U.S. He scored that fantastic goal against Brazil back in the day where the U.S. beat Brazil. I believe it was in the '99 Gold Cup, and that's when Romario shook Casey Keller's hand and said afterwards in the presser that was the best goalkeeping he'd ever seen in his life. But Preki's been with Sacramento Republic. He's done a great job with them. He had a couple of very nice years with Chivas USA. You just wouldn't expect him to go from a third division U.S. club to the Premier League, but there you go. I'm happy about it.
Maybe that'll open the door
for
more teams.
Which is why I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Maybe
we'll see if he maybe tries to bring some MLS players over to help fill spots.
Could be.
He doesn't have Juan Pablo Angel, though, playing up top for him anymore.
Hey, I was a big fan.
Classic.
I was a big fan of Juan.
Him.
I actually, he was on the field in the early years, at least, was a better DP than Beckham was.
Yes.
Until Beckham really committed to the MLS. Juan Pablo Angel, he was a great spokesman for the league. He was a stand-up guy, and he was a great baller, man.
Yes. Between the time in New York and in Chivas, he was arguably one of my top 5 DPs to ever play.
Yeah, he's very underrated. Not many people remember him.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic player.
Agreed.
Anyways, Preki to Leicester City. We'll see how that turns out. It's kind of tough that he's taken on a team that fought relegation all the way through Christmas. And we'll see what happens.
We're hoping that they can stay afloat, especially with the new coach. Now, an interesting development, the Atlanta expansion franchise. We're kind of jumping all over the soccer world right now, but we want to hit on some prominent soccer news. But the Atlanta franchise coming up with a name.
Is that what you call it?
That's what they're calling
That's
it.
what they're Atlanta United FC.
Or the Avengers.
Or the Avengers with their
big
logo.
A Avenger. Like, you look at the... Okay, first of all, walk us through the video, Simon, because you did...
Well, first of all, this Atlanta franchise is purely American,
says the Englishman they hire for their promo video.
That alone kills any credibility in the video. Then you have what looks like a upcoming Avengers movie trailer, basically, in terms of the big A, like with the silver and the this and the that.
And here's my favorite part about that, right?
Yes.
Is the irony of this announcer saying,
"We are about innovation."
So that's why we're going to call ourselves the most generic name possible.
Yes.
Atlanta United FC.
Yes.
And use the colors that the other United team in the league already uses, black and red. Fine, you're throwing gold in there, good for you. What is innovative about that?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
The fact that they are going to be playing in a football soccer stadium is innovative.
Innovative in the way that Seattle and Vancouver.
No, come on. But Atlanta Stadium.
We forgot about that part of it.
Atlanta Stadium has retractable seats, though, to make you closer to the pitch.
You think about the front office. They do this fan survey, and all these fans are asking for some really cool names. The Atlanta Blackhearts.
That's
now,
awesome.
Now black and red works with that, right? Atlanta Blackhearts.
Black and red.
You've got the Atlanta Terminus, the Atlanta Legion. You got fans saying these are the names we want. And so the front office turns around and says, well, we threw 35 names out there, and the ones who popped up the most were Atlanta United FC. So that's what we're going to do. And you just think, were they trying to figure out how incredibly underwhelming they could be? Because they succeeded in doing that. And then they come out with a logo that logo is not going to stick around. You know, logo's got to be something that, for a sports franchise, especially a soccer club, it's got to be something that can stay through time. You know, can withstand the test of time.
Absolutely.
And that logo is not going to stand the test of time. It looks like a logo from 2015, and that's what it's going to look like 5 years from now, 20 years from now, and they're going to have to change the thing. I think the right thing to do, and maybe this is their plan, is they come out with all this garbage to then turn around and say, hey, if we listen to the fans, we're going to name the team this, and this is what our logo is going to look like.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, when Ludacris is at your name unveiling,
that's true.
That right there seals the deal for me.
You know, when Houston first came up with their name, it was Houston 1836, and the Hispanic population was incredibly offended by that. Granted, everybody's offended by something in the U.S. these days, but they were offended by that. So Houston did the right thing. They changed their name to the Houston Dynamo, which actually played on their soccer history because there was a Houston Dynamos back in the old American Soccer League.
Kind of like the Seattle Sounders back in the day.
Right. So, and by the way, the 1836 thing dealt with, that was when Texas...
Is that the Alamo?
That was the Alamo.
Remember the Alamo!
So it was Remember the Alamo, but it was also when Houston was founded. So the Hispanics took that as a slight to their heritage, which
I don't see
get
any
that.
British fans yelling about the Revolution, the New England Revolution.
Right.
Get over it. Chicago fire, people died.
They did die in the fire.
And
it was a cow that started that fire.
Yeah.
You know,
nobody's upset about the
cows
fire's
got to be
name,
so
though.
offended.
Right? The cow population as a whole is probably horrifically offended because of the Chicago fire name.
Right.
Gives cows a bad name everywhere.
But anyways, so Atlanta. Now, you did make an interesting comment.
I did.
That I think would be quite swell.
It ties into the other piece of news that Landon Donovan will be coaching the Chipotle homegrown game. He'll be coaching the MLS up-and-comers, the homegrown players.
Right. They're playing against the U20 reserve team, not reserve team, but the U20 team from Club America.
Yes, which should be an interesting match.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that they've been doing the All-Star game against foreign opponents for quite a few years now. I think it's cool that they're going to do that with the homegrown game as well.
It gives you a good opportunity to see, and some players will play both.
Yes,
we saw DeAndre Edlin play both last year. We saw was it Harry Shipp and Zardes? I think both made it as well.
I can't
Shipp
remember.
didn't. I think Zardes did. But either way, DeAndre Edlin for sure made both.
Right. So, so Donovan is coaching the homegrown MLS team.
Yep.
And you made an interesting. You were joking around, and then I went, "Wait a second," because Carlos Bocanegra is, I think he's the technical director for Atlanta. Him and Donovan are good friends. Mm-hmm. And you had made the comment, "Wouldn't it be something if Donovan coached Atlanta?" I'm thinking, who knows how good of a coach he's going to be? But what a way to sell tickets!
You want to put butts in seats. There it is.
Now, that goes back to the whole disappointment. They've sold 21,000 season tickets. Why aren't you listening to your fans?
Yeah. New York has sold 17.
17,000.
17, that's it. And they're midway through the season.
Yeah, that's true. That's still impressive, though.
It
17,000 season tickets. I mean, again,
for Yankee Stadium, considering the venue, they can't put a ton in.
And I'm looking at this from the perspective of a guy who's started playing soccer in the 80s.
Yes,
it still blows my mind that we live in a day and age where there are 17,000 season tickets being sold.
Mm-hmm. The fact that you have 21,000 season tickets sold for a franchise is important. It makes the fact that the fans care about this movement, and it's something, like you said, their opinions need to be valued. And they're not being. Sure, the fans are behind it, like, we have a team. Sacramento, San Antonio, St. Louis, Louisville, Charleston, there's at least 5 to 10 cities that want an MLS team that would come up with miles better of a name. Even Sacramento Republic FC, I would take that over Atlanta United.
Right, and then, of course, you're going to have Minnesota United in the league.
Yes.
But that's a legitimate name. They're coming into the league with that name already, and there is some history to that name in that United Healthcare, the insurance company, actually invested in that Minnesota franchise, which is where they got the United name from. So at least there's some reasoning behind that. And, of course, they'll be known more as the Loons, but you're going to have 3 teams in this league with United behind their name. DC, I get. I thought it was actually pretty clever. Some people thought it was cheesy. I thought it was pretty clever that your DC franchise is United. Minnesota makes sense to me as well, and they'll probably be in separate divisions, separate conferences.
Minnesota and Atlanta?
No, Minnesota and D.C., which is what I'm saying. That would have been fine with me to have in the West a United team and in the East a United team. But now you got Atlanta that's going to be in the East. So in the East, you're going to have 2 United teams, and their primary colors are black and red.
I wonder what their second and third jerseys are going to look like. Yeah. I'll be curious to see that. It really doesn't. I mean, I'll be curious if Minnesota gets pushed to the West. I don't feel like they would.
They're west of the Mississippi, and most leagues put those teams in the West.
Huh. Yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see that, but, I mean, we'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
18.
Of course, the 17. One reason to keep them in the East is you have that rivalry with Chicago.
Which would be huge. In Chicago, Columbus has never really panned out.
No.
So I think having a Minnesota, Chicago rivalry would be big. And maybe you could get a try. You have the Cascadia region. Sure. Maybe you can get the Midwestern region. You can get Columbus and Chicago and Minnesota.
But don't forget Kansas City's in there too.
Yes, but they're a Western Conference team now, so people have kind of forgot about that.
Well, we'll see because Columbus and Toronto they have a true blood rivalry. Their fans hate each other.
They really do. It's funny. It's awesome, but it's funny. So I mean, it really kind of depends on how you want to look at it. And we'll see what happens once. The teams officially become declared, and maybe Miami will get a team with David Beckham. LAFC comes around too. Maybe Sacramento finally gets a team.
Yeah.
Don Garber says that he wants to add, 24 teams by 2020 is what he wants, and he's with all the new franchises. I think he's
23.
He's at 23, so 23. He's got one more spot.
He's got one more spot, and he's come out recently and said as well that there's 24 is not the max. He already knows they'll be going past that, which I know you're not a fan of. But
well, yes and no. I mean, as long as they don't have 3/4 of the teams make the playoffs.
Right. Yes. And we are in total agreement on that.
Or put it into divisions like football.
It's ridiculous right now.
I like the way that the NFL does it.
See, I don't like the idea of
4 teams in a division.
Yeah, not for soccer. I ultimately I want it to be a straight table. I don't really care about the promotion relegation thing.
But a straight table.
I love the idea of a straight table.
And then the top whatever teams make the playoffs?
Yeah.
So straight table, top whatever.
Yeah. If you're at 24 teams, I still love the idea of 8 teams making it, but that really gives credence to a Supporters' Shield winner. Mm-hmm. You can't really be a true regular season champion of a league if you're not playing each team evenly.
Exactly. And that's why you see teams like Seattle last year go for the treble and not make it, obviously.
Right, yeah. But before all that expansion happens, we got some exciting stuff happening soon in MLS. We won't spend much time on this because everybody knows it, but we got Lampard coming in, we got Gerrard coming in, Pirlo is coming soon, and there's some waves out there, Dos Santos, Chicharito possibly. I don't know if that Chicharito thing is going to be on anymore with his injury, though.
We'll see.
We shall see. But we got exciting times coming ahead. We'll see if these guys can buck the trend of these mid-season acquisitions, always tending to fail a bit in their first half season of MLS, needing maybe that rest. But LA,
they're going to be fun.
NYCFC,
let's do it.
We may see that team take off. Yeah. And of course, Jason Kreis adding some defenders as well to New York. This could be a different team in the second half of the season.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. All right, well, we're going to go to one more break. When we come back, we're going to offer our I Believe segments and throw out any other random comments we feel like as well. We're almost done with the show. We are broadcasting live from Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois at the 2015 CONCACAF Gold Cup group stages. Mexico takes out Cuba 6-0, and Trinidad Tobago go 3-1 on Guatemala. This is Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
And we are broadcasting live from the press box at historic Soldier Field in downtown Chicago. We were in town this evening catching the 2015 CONCACAF Group C Gold Cup matches. We saw Cuba fall victim to a Mexico barrage attack, to borrow the German blitzkrieg. Is really what it came down to.
Yes, it was.
They fall 6-0.
Though it was interesting at times, I think they got caught up in the idea that they were playing in an American football stadium because they certainly looked to be looking for more field goals than soccer goals at a few points in the game. Mexico, that is.
Yeah. I struggled with that too in terms of when I played high school, because high school football is a fall sport and high school soccer is a winter sport in Florida. So I would be the kicker for high school in fall, and then I would transition over to soccer. And my first week or two of training, I could bomb 60-yard field goals with a soccer ball, but I couldn't put it on frame from 3 yards. So it was a little difficult in that regards. But we want to touch briefly on your time in Portland.
Sure.
You got a chance to go to a Timbers game and watch them take on the Dynamo, and then we're going to be headed out for the night because they want to close up shop and we want to get home.
They're kicking us out of here.
So, all right. So we will finish this up briefly fast. So talk about Portland real quick before we got to go.
Well, we're getting kicked out of here. It was awesome. It was great.
Simple enough?
Not only was it awesome because of the atmosphere, as it always is. This was my second time out there. But, man, they just destroyed Houston from the first minute to the 90th minute. It was fantastic. But they're kicking us out, so
all right.
We'll move on to our I Believes.
All right, our I Believe segments. Very quickly, I believe that Trinidad and Tobago will upset Mexico.
Ooh, I like that call.
I do believe that will happen.
I'm going to keep this about the show. I believe we're going to have an actual true Two Up Front next week. Power rankings, reviews, predictions, all of that.
Indeed.
But it's been fun mixing it up on this Gold Cup special.
Indeed. We were able to welcome in Vavel USA's Afshin. He was able to talk about the Gold Cup games for us and offer some wonderful insight. We'll definitely have him back on the show again in the future, so big thanks out to him. He's Simon Provan. I am Baxter Colburn. Remember, follow us on Facebook at Two Up Front and on Twitter at Two Up Front Soccer. For all of us here at Sports Radio America, and
including the security guy.
Big shout out to him who's kicking us out. We love him, but we got to go too. So have a wonderful night from Chicago, Illinois at the 2015 CONCACAF Gold Cup Group C matches. He's Simon Provan. I'm Baxter Colburn. We are managed by the one above, and we are Two Up Front.